Okay, in this tutorial I'll show you one way that you can go about creating slow motion effects within the game engine. And this works well for, say, those commercials you've seen on TV lately where the car crashes into the brick wall and the bricks go flying everywhere and the car punches through to the other side. But a lot of times when they do those effects, as they move it along, when it hits the wall, then the bricks start exploding out slowly, right? And then eventually they'll go back into real-time speed. So there's ways to control that in here as well. So for instance, if I run this, here's this same missile that I have from before. Let's see if it's, so I can just align it. If I get it aligned just right, you'll see I can run it into the building like this. Alright, like I did before. But that's falling at the regular rate. But let's just do something in here. Notice what I have over in here is if this fourth tab over here, right here for the active data, down here under the physics it says bullet. So this is the engine, it's the bullet physics engine that's actually running these simulations. You can change that to none if you want, then none of those bricks will fall. But the other more important thing is here is specifies gravity within the engine. Well, it says 9.8, and so for those of you who've studied math and physics, you know there's something missing there. There's not a unit of measurement associated with it. So a lot of times the way I work is I'll start in here over to this setting right here, this scene setting, and by default it starts at none in degrees, and I'll change it to metric like this. And just by changing it to metric, when we come back in here, now it shows a more accurate setting for the acceleration of gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. That's the same as saying this second squared is the same as saying meters per second. Or if in the US you'd set it to imperial, or then when you look at it, it's the same as 32.15 feet per second squared. That's the same as per second. Alright, but I prefer to work in the metric system because it's easier to work with. Instead of, you're not really having to translate back and forth between two systems. Just get used to working in the metric system, and you'll find it's a lot simpler because you just move decimal points in many cases to change your measurements. But in this case, so it's at 9.8 meters per second squared. Well, let's just use half the gravity. So, and then let's rerun the simulation. And I'll just move this missile a little bit. Alright. And now already you see, as they go off, let's try that again. And then you can see as they're falling, they fall much slower to the ground, and so you can get that kind of slow motion effect just by changing the gravity like this. Or let's do it at 2 meters per second squared. And then you see it takes much longer. So that's one way to control slow motion effects. And then but a lot of times, well, in this case I'm using the game logic and the logic bricks to do this, but for most anything sophisticated that I'll do, I always do it through Python. It's just simpler and it gives you a lot more power. Like maybe I wanted to turn this into a heat-seeking missile. I assure you Python's the only way to go. And the game engine is cool, but Python's much cooler, I assure you. Alright, well that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.